Hello and welcome to the Smartest Moron, where today we're finally covering a good Kickstarter game. Unless you count my previous reviews on Operation Rainfall with these games, which I actually really recommend.
Good freaking god, I have been waiting for this game ever since it was first announced. While my experience with Kickstarter games came from a certain not-so-mighty game, I have played enough of Shovel Knight and Hollow Knight to know that a game can succeed with the right people behind it. Cosmic Star Heroine was originally slated for 2014, but faced constant delays. Keep in mind, the company, Zeboyd Games, didn't have a lot of developers working on it. Only 2 guys made this, with the exception of the soundtrack. Honestly, this reminds me of the situation with Dust and Elysian Tale, which I will cover one day. I just keep forgetting. What lured me into this game was a style reflecting that of Chrono Trigger, and Square Enix was hardly doing anything with that series. Sure, there was I Am Setsuna, but from what I hear, that didn't quite live up to the hype. And I admit the delays did dishearten me a bit. However, I'm one of the types of people willing to wait so long as you provide a good product at the end. The last thing anyone needs is a buggy mess.
So naturally, the game released with bugs and all that crap, and yet somehow it's still more complete than Final Fantasy 15.
Yeah, the bugs kinda pissed me off. There was repeatedly talking to the same NPC, which meant you had to slowly get away, since there was no other button to just cancel out conversations. That felt like a huge oversight. The worst bug though for me was regarding a fight with a giant monster. Hint, if it's still buggy for you after the patches, do not use the cannon to finish it. Fight your FPS urges, dammit! Fortunately, the developers are quickly getting out the patches, and even helped me find that workaround so I could finish the game. Not to mention hearing them talk about the development through Twitter was pretty interesting. Sure, I had some disagreements with them, like say Parasite Eve 2 being a good game when I found that, while it had potential, it was fairly crappy. At the time of this writing, there was supposed to be a Vita version, and it's still in the works as they do want to make that a genuinely good game. Fortunately, I bought a PS4 so I could play this, and this game does have cross-buy too. Alternatively, you can get the Steam version, which seems to have more patch fixes too. According to some of the discussions I found, they do plan on adding a few more things too. However, I am judging this game as it is right now and my experience playing it. I didn't go easy on Final Fantasy 15 after all. Speaking of mistakes, I completely forgot I had a Bandcamp key for, well, Cosmic Star Heroine, so I ended up buying the soundtrack.
Believe me, I want to hit myself in the head for doing that, but then again, well, my doctor recommended I don't do that anymore.
The point is that these devs are genuinely good people, and I am excited to finally get a chance to cover this game. I was originally just going to do a quick review, but when I finished the game, I changed my mind as this is indeed a game that deserves to be covered in way more than 5 minutes. They were willing to put their all into this game, and I will respond in kind.
So let's get started with the review of Cosmic Star Heroine for the PS4. And yeah, there's still no physical copy. That's not going to be for a while. Just hope it doesn't take as long as my freaking Skullgirls physical edition. I'm still waiting!
Cosmic Star Heroine differs a bit from RPGs, preferring to rely on reusing up to 7 skills rather than using MP. Unless otherwise stated, they work for 1 turn until you make a character defend so that they can be reused again. There's a ton of variety with strategy with these skills, especially with your party members and the number of skills they can actually learn. It does eventually get broken later with certain moves though, but the ride until that point is pretty awesome. That said, you must also pay attention to your style counter. The higher it is, the more damage your characters can do. However, enemies also keep growing stronger the longer a fight goes, so you have to be careful. Timing your moves is also key thanks to Hyper Mode. See the blue dot under the health? Once that is maxed out, your character can transform and deal out far more damage. Or maybe inflict status effects easier on a foe, which surprisingly includes bosses. Hell, in some fights it felt necessary to inflict those, and I actually enjoy that, rather than constantly getting rid of them like I do in other games. Style can also help save a character from falling in battle through Desperation Mode, making one last stand until they either heal or use a skill that can help them live longer. Otherwise, they are pretty much dead.
Basically, just think of Desperation Mode as that one time in DBZ when Tien tried to kill Nappa with the last of his power and failed spectacularly. Yeah, my recommendation is heal and heal fast.
Equipment is also a large factor, as stuff like weapons and accessories can change your moves for bonus effects. Not only that, but armor can give characters programs, which serve as extra one-time use skills in a fight, but they also require certain stats to use, that I still have no clue what they represent. A digital manual could have actually been helpful here. Alyssa later gains a unique one as well, to give access to combination attacks, similar to double text and Chrono Trigger. Unfortunately, only she can initiate these skills. Then there's a huge gamble as they take away a ton of style. I rarely use these as a result. You can also gather people to your cause, which reminded me of Tad of Suikoden. Shit, I keep forgetting to review that too. Anyway, while they won't actively fight with you in fights, they can provide stat buffs or do other things to help out. Random battles are not a thing either, as you can see enemies on the screen. Sometimes you can't avoid them, but there were moments I could bypass the enemy entirely. Naturally, due to my extreme urge to murder all monsters in sight, I kept on fighting. What's different though is that the monsters you beat never respawn, not even if you come back to a previous area. I could enjoy the scenery and the music uninterrupted, and it felt great. Now before you whine and streak as to how the flying hell you can grind, let me make 2 points perfectly clear. 1. Even on Heroine difficulty, I never felt the need to grind at all. I progressed just fine, and while some battles were difficult, that was the point as I had to make a good loadout. And 2, you can still grind with no real issue. Just go into the menu, hit battle, and you'll be fighting a random group of enemies from the map to gain more experience points. Plus there are extra areas not related to the plot you can eventually find while traveling, which also contain bonus gear. Further convenience is added as you don't have to worry about your health after a fight. The important thing is the loadout. This means items are relegated to a special role, with 3 slots, eventually 4 if you know where to look. I'm not sure why there are 4 more unused slots though, and my search online led me to them never being able to unlock, so that is pretty damn confusing. These items can only be used once as well, barring certain skills to help use them multiple times. And stuff like the potions can be lifesavers when you lack a healer. The 4th difficulty though, sweet baby Jesus, be careful. The first fight alone can get you killed if you haven't mastered the mechanics of the game.
It wouldn't be a real RPG without that masochism mode. Why do you think I like Shin Megami Tensei so much?
Another thing to note is that while I do feel the game did give enough experience points to move on to the next part, I didn't feel too much of a challenge towards the end. Then again, at that point, I had been strong enough to take down some of the toughest extra bosses. Barring Cthulhu though. And don't worry, I'll be back to suplex your ass. Also, these characters are actually from Zeboyd Games' previous titles. One of the things that I feel harms the presentation is the lack of sound effects in some areas. In some scenes, this could theoretically work, but not in a game like this. I'm not sure if they will be patched in or were intentional, but moments like these I didn't quite get. That said, I did really enjoy the music done by Hyperduck Soundworks. As always, I was more drawn to the combat music, which does help in keeping the battles fast-paced as well. Plus, I really love the visual design of the game as well, invoking a lot from not just Chrono Trigger, but from games of that era as well. They feel distinct from one another, each with their own set of citizens or objects that can be interacted with interesting and humorous ways. And the character models are very expressive. Seriously, anyone who says these are not expressive, they're wrong. Not to mention it runs really damn smoothly on PS4, and made me glad I bought this so I could play it before the Vita version. There isn't really much of a tutorial, and honestly, it's not bad in this game due to how easy it was to pick up and play here. You are given a ton of tools to play with, and if one set of things doesn't work for you, swap out some party members when allowed, and you can try again or do some practice. And each battle doesn't make me just press X over and over to skip them either. I am genuinely engaged given the fierceness of these enemies. Plus, their funny descriptions also keeps things amusing as well. Again, the only thing I really needed to know were just what the hell these stats mean. There's nothing really super negative I can say about the gameplay. It's fast, engaging, simple to use yet hard to master, and above all else, fun. I can recommend this to not just RPG veterans, but those new to RPGs as well. If there's one negative thing I can say is that there aren't enough unique scenarios, like fighting robots while climbing a building or the giant robot fight. And even then, a minor gripe when I take in all these factors. Though how does the story handle? Let's find that out right now. Due to the fast nature of the story, I'll just give a summary rather than recapping the intro. You play as Alyssa LaSalle, a special agent who casually beats the crap out of robots, monsters, and many other evildoers, all while having her own charm that I do find interesting, though her friend Sean stole a bit of the show thanks to her ability to summon guns. Now that seems a bit over the top, and it is, but technically summoning guns that can fire from an enemy's blind spot is more effective than some random key blast. You know, unless you're from DBZ. The point is that after one mission that reminds him a bit too much of The Thing, or Aliens, you pick whichever sci-fi movie you want, but with robots instead, she discovers a device that her boss wants to rule over other people. Naturally, seeing this big threat, she jumps into action by escaping with said device along with many of her friends, and even making more allies along the way, all to find a way to counter the mind control device. That and fighting off against the organization hunting down Alyssa, along with any other bad guys and monsters. The story itself is decently told, though because of the fast pace and so many characters, it loses a bit of its edge. A lot of them are fairly interesting in not just their movesets, but their personalities too. We sadly don't get a whole lot of information beyond their introductions though. This lawyer dude in particular felt a bit forgettable. Let me put it this way. We remember the likes of Brog and Luca because they had storylines that did develop their characters, and they are responsible for major events, such as reforging the Masamune and using it to eventually fight Magus. These events were given enough time for build-up as well. That said, the dialogue can be cheesy and still gave me enough info to make some of these characters interesting, like the argument between Sue and Lauren in the casino as they were trying to run away from their captors. One gigantic positive I can give to this game is that I never once felt lost, or if I put down the controller, I won't just forget what I was doing a few days later, which sadly does happen to me when playing one of the Tales games.
I swear to God, I'll be one of the cool kids that eventually finishes one of those games. Yeah, I have no idea for jokes today. I'm sorry.
Regardless, I'm still interested in where the plot and characters go, rather than say wait till over halfway through the story till things finally get interesting, like in Final Fantasy 15. I swear that will be my last jab at that game, for now. The payoff with the ending may not be the greatest thanks to the pace, but I am left kinda satisfied. So with that said, let's at least examine some of the things I feel improved on Chrono Trigger, and what didn't. So, what exactly did this game improve on with Chrono Trigger? Well, aside from the transition to fights and some of the combat system, disregarding the double tech thing, I would have to go with the final level of the game. One thing I remember with Chrono Trigger was always choosing to go through the Black Omen in order to defeat Lavos, as I also wanted to slap the shit out of Zeal and have some resolution with Magus' character. However, there were parts I hated going through, specifically Lavos repeating a ton of boss patterns. This was really unnecessary, as after that point, you are already so powerful, you can clear through these forms with the utmost of ease. Now compare that to Cosmic Star Heroine. Sure, there were moments when I was arguably overpowered, but the battles were still engaging and the level itself kept up the same fast pace the game wants to keep. Plus I was encouraged to keep getting better and better gear in order to fight the final boss. And the final boss itself doesn't give you any bullcrap, just 3 forms with a cool design that even encouraged the use of just about any party. That was another bit of a down point of the Lavos battle in Chrono Trigger. Although I do admit, at least there, I like the clever idea of having the real threat of Lavos wasn't something you never expect. So in these aspects, Cosmic Star Heroine arguably did significantly better. It's just a shame that the build-up for the final villain wasn't terribly strong though. Again, I don't think it's bad. One of your party members, Arete, turning out to be controlled and dying is a fairly sad and decent scene. But the fast-paced writing also damages the impact as well, as we didn't know a whole lot about the character. This could have been improved on in other ways, such as her commenting more on certain story bits as long as she is in the party. I don't really recall this being done in the game all that well. Then again, mind-controlled, so that's probably a reason too. Flashbacks could have also helped too, or specific character quests like with Lauren being sad or being reminiscent about the character, discussing how painful it was to find this stuff out. Sometimes lines of dialogue can suffice with this, even optional stuff too. I mean, you have the character portraits, so those work perfectly fine. Take for example adding conversations back at the ship. Adding some more lines of dialogue at those points, or even having the Dragon Quest VIII pause and chat thing could have helped give more flavor to this. This is especially important when you consider we haven't even seen this universe, and not much is done to expand upon it. That said, my earlier points will stand in how the characters do bounce well off of one another, and are filled with personality. The story just needed a tad slower pace. Maybe lose a few characters to help give them more of a good sense to bring out their personality or any character development. And while I don't feel there's a ton of the latter within the game, I still enjoyed the characters compared to, say, Mega Man X Command Mission, where we saw how those said characters not even show up during the finale. Or even compare this to Mighty No. 9, where the game told more than it showed, especially during the finale, or even Beck himself, who was pushed to the side in favor of Dr. White, who was already pretty damn bland and not really easy to understand as the story feels like it's a continuation to a story we never got. Compare that to Alyssa, who I feel we just have enough information to know her personality, how she behaves, and how competent she can be in each situation. We see more interactions with the characters we are introduced to, see how they go through the story as well, which helps greatly to make me care about some of them and the situation. It's just a shame there wasn't more of that. So despite the fast pace, I consider Cosmic Star Heroine's plot fairly decent and enjoyed my time with it. If nothing else, I can feel the genuine love that the developers have for the RPGs of the past, and their will to move into the future. The game doesn't feel choked by its nostalgia or anything, and honestly, that's a pretty damn big accomplishment.
So with all my complaints about the story and everything, how does the game hold up? Well, honestly, pretty damn well.
This really does feel like a more modernized version of Chrono Trigger, suited to those that not only enjoy that game, but hate the other quirks RPGs carry. Unfortunately, it carries its own identity as well, so you can't really label it as a ripoff or anything. It's incredibly fast-paced thanks to its combat system and not having random battles. Grinding is even an optional thing, while you are given several skills spread out amongst all characters to create tons of different strategies against your enemies. Accessibility is key here, and I'd be surprised if no one could get into this game. The story suffers a bit due to the fast pace, however. There are definitely some scenes I felt could have been done better. Maybe take out a few party members to help let the others shine more. Regardless of price, I did enjoy this game, and would definitely pay more for a physical edition should that ever come out. You know, so long as I have an actual paying job by then. I got my money's worth, and the only regret I have from this experience is that I didn't give any more money. Honestly would have killed for that t-shirt, and since I do seem to have a spare Bandcamp key, I feel like having a little competition. So here's what I want you to do. Once I put up the review on Twitter, you can retweet and like it for a chance to win. Now I do remember some people getting peeved at me limiting the contest there, so I'll offer this. Give me a detailed reason of why you like any sci-fi video game character. For those wondering, I'll limit the options to space characters only. They also have to only appear in that very game, so no Star Wars or Star Trek. I'll make an exception for the Old Republic series though. So long as I feel you wrote enough info, that will count as an entry. That said, this soundtrack key is only for second place. First prize will be the game itself on Steam, along with the soundtrack, because I can't get like some kind of Sony key or something for some bizarre reason. And I'll give everyone about, say, 2 weeks to give me one of those, so be sure to act fast.
I'm the smartest moron, and hopefully this game will sell well, because the ideas I saw on their Twitter feed, well, as ludicrous as they can be, I still want to see them.